My daughter banned me from her wedding, so I canceled the venue I paid for. So I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here we are. My daughter, Laura, she's 28 now, blocked me from her own wedding. Let that sink in for a minute. I was blocked from a wedding that I was literally paying for. I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, but I figured sharing this here might help me sort things out, or at least let me vent a little. First off, let me just say this. Laura has always been a bit of a handful. Even when she was a kid, we had our ups and downs. But what parent and kid don't, right? Still, I never imagined things would go this far. I mean, yeah, we've had disagreements in the past, but nothing that would make me think she'd go this extreme. Anyway, I'll try to keep this as clear as possible. Laura has been with her fiancé, Matt, for a few years now. They're not exactly rolling in money, so when they started planning the wedding, I offered to cover the costs. Seemed like a nice gesture, and honestly, I wanted to help them start their marriage on the right foot. I know weddings are expensive as hell, and since they were struggling, I figured why not? It was my way of showing support. I was happy to do it, and I thought she'd appreciate the help. It's a big moment, right? Your daughter's wedding, the day your kid steps into a new chapter of life. I wasn't expecting a parade or anything, but maybe a little gratitude would have been nice. But things started going sideways not long after that. So fast forward a bit. The wedding planning is well underway, and Laura seemed to have everything under control. I wasn't too involved in the little details. Honestly, I wasn't trying to micromanage her wedding. I trusted she could handle it. But one day I thought it'd be nice to add my brother, Mark, to the guest list. He and Laura have always been close, and I figured it wouldn't be a problem. Just one more person, right? No big deal. I called up the wedding planner to ask if they could add Mark, and that's where things got weird. The planner sounded kind of awkward when I asked. He hesitated and then told me the guest list was full. Full? How is that possible? It's a wedding, not a movie premiere. You can always squeeze in one more, right? So I pushed a little, thinking maybe he misunderstood or there was a mistake. Finally, after some back and forth, the planner sent me the guest list. And let me tell you, when I opened that list, my heart stopped for a second. I wasn't on it. Neither was Linda, my wife. I'm sitting there, staring at this list of people I barely know, but my own name isn't there. Not mine. Not Linda's. At this point, I'm beyond confused. I thought, there has to be some mistake. I mean, how could my own daughter leave me off the list for her wedding? Especially when I'm the one footing the bill. It didn't make any sense. So I called the planner back, trying to stay calm, but my mind was racing. I asked him straight up, why aren't we on the guest list? Did Laura forget? The planner hesitated again and then dropped the bomb. He told me that Laura specifically instructed him not to invite me or Linda, and on top of that, she requested extra security to make sure we couldn't even enter the venue if we tried. I sat there stunned. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own daughter was planning her wedding behind my back, and she went as far as hiring security to keep me out. I mean, what the hell? At this point, I'm livid. I asked the planner to show me proof because this has to be a misunderstanding, right? Maybe there was a miscommunication or something. But nope. He forwarded me the emails, and there it was, in plain black and white. Laura had been planning this for weeks, and she made it clear that I wasn't welcome. I didn't know what to do. I felt completely blindsided. All this time, I thought I was doing something good for her, helping her out, supporting her, and she's actively keeping me from her wedding? I can't even begin to explain how hurt I was. But what hit me the hardest wasn't just being left off the guest list. It was the fact that she planned it this way. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a slip-up. She went out of her way to make sure I wouldn't be there. And for what? Because we had a few arguments over the years? Because I didn't always agree with her choices? That's part of being a parent. You try to guide your kids, even when they don't want to hear it. I kept thinking back to all the times I supported her. When she got in trouble in school, when she was hanging with the wrong crowd, when we had to deal with some really tough situations, I was always there. Even when she was angry at the world, I tried to be the one she could count on. And now, she's shutting me out of one of the biggest moments of her life, and I don't even get to know why. I don't want to come off as the victim here, but it felt like a slap in the face. A really cold, calculated slap. I've seen her go through phases where she'd be mad at me for something small, but she usually came around. This felt different. This felt permanent. After getting off the phone with the planner, I just sat there, staring at the email. I must have read it 100 times, hoping I'd see something that would make it all make sense, but nothing did. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. But mixed with the anger was a deep sadness. It's hard to describe, but there's this feeling you get when you realize your own child doesn't want you in their life. It's like a punch to the gut, and I couldn't shake it. I kept trying to figure out what I did to deserve this. What could have pushed her this far? Sure, we've had our share of disagreements, but I never thought it would come to this. Blocking me from her wedding? Making sure I couldn't even show up if I wanted to? It's like she was punishing me, but for what? I wish I had some big conclusion to this part of the story, but I don't. That's where I was left, stunned, confused, and heartbroken. I didn't know what my next move would be, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just about the wedding anymore. It was about something much deeper, and I had no idea how to fix it. All right, so after getting that guest list and seeing my name nowhere on it, I was fuming. I couldn't just sit around with that information and do nothing. I mean, how was I supposed to act like everything was fine after finding out my own daughter had blocked me from her wedding? I knew I had to confront Laura and figure out what the hell was going on. There was no way I could just let this slide without getting some answers. So I tried calling her. No response. Tried again. Straight to voicemail. This went on for the whole day. I get it, she's busy with wedding prep and all, but I was desperate for some clarity. At this point, I couldn't tell if I was more angry or hurt, but I needed to talk to her. I left her a voicemail asking her to call me back. Nothing, just silence. That silence was driving me crazy. After a day or two of no response, I hit my breaking point. If she wasn't going to come to me, I'd go to her. So I got in the car and drove over to her apartment. It wasn't far from where I live, and honestly, I didn't even think about what I was going to say. I just knew I needed to talk to her face to face. I figured maybe she could explain, maybe we could talk it out. Or maybe I was being naive, thinking she'd have some reasonable explanation for all this. When I got to her place, I was buzzing with adrenaline. My head was full of all the things I wanted to say, but at the same time I wasn't sure what to expect. I knocked on the door, and after what felt like forever, Laura opened it. She looked at me like she wasn't even surprised I was there, like she'd been expecting this confrontation. That pissed me off even more, but I tried to stay calm. No need to go full-on crazy right at the start, right? We stood there for a second, and then she just asked, "What do you want, Dad?" Like I was some kind of stranger showing up uninvited. I told her straight up, "I want to know why my name isn't on the guest list. Why the hell would you block me from your wedding?" She sighed, rolled her eyes, and said something like, "I thought you'd figure it out eventually." That just made me angrier. I asked her again, trying to stay calm, but my voice was definitely shaking by this point. "Why, Laura? Why would you do this?" Her response? "It saved you the trouble of showing up." She said it so casually, like this whole thing was no big deal. I was standing there ready to explode, and she was acting like it was just another Wednesday afternoon. "I'll send you the pictures if I have time," she added, with this dismissive shrug. That's when I lost it. I couldn't hold back anymore. "What the hell is wrong with you?" I yelled. I was shaking, full of this mix of rage and heartbreak. I mean, after everything I'd done for her, this is how she treats me? I couldn't wrap my head around it. How does a daughter block her own dad from her wedding and then act like it's no big deal? But it didn't stop there. She had more to say, and none of it was good. She started listing out all these reasons for why I deserved to be left off the guest list. She said I never took her side, that I was always against her, that I'd flaunted Linda, my wife, her stepmom, in her face. She even brought up stuff from years ago, things I thought we'd moved past. She talked about times when she needed me to stand up for her, and I didn't, like when she was fighting with her cousin or when she got into trouble at school. Now, I won't lie. There were times when I couldn't defend her. She wasn't always in the right, and I wasn't going to support her when she was clearly wrong. I tried to explain that to her, but she wasn't having it. She was convinced that I'd been against her for years, that I'd abandoned her, and that this whole wedding thing was just payback. She even brought up stuff from when she was younger, like the time we had to deal with her getting caught with pills. Yeah, she had her rough patches, but I was there for her. I supported her through all of that, even when it was hard. I didn't turn my back on her when she needed help. I tried to guide her, get her the help she needed, and make sure she stayed on track, but apparently none of that mattered. In her mind, I had failed her in every way that counted. Standing there, listening to her unload all this anger, I realized how deep the resentment ran. It wasn't just about this wedding. It was years of built-up frustration that I didn't even know she was holding on to. And the way she was throwing it all at me now, like it was my fault she was so messed up, was just too much. At some point, I started tearing up. I didn't even mean to. It just happened. I asked her, practically begging, "What did I do that was so terrible, Laura? Why are you treating me like this?" I hoped deep down that maybe she'd show some sign of regret or empathy, that she'd soften, even just a little. But no, she stayed cold. "You never had my back," she said. You were always more concerned with your new life with Linda. You didn't care about me." That hit like a punch to the gut. I tried to explain to her that I always cared, that I loved her more than anything, but she was convinced I'd chosen my new family over her. I didn't know what to say. I was standing there in her apartment doorway, trying to figure out how we got to this point. She didn't want me at her wedding. She didn't want me in her life, apparently. And nothing I said was going to change that. It felt like we were speaking two different languages. Every time I tried to explain myself, she'd throw something else back at me, like she'd been keeping a list of all the ways I'd failed her over the years. Eventually, she told me I was just bringing negativity into her life, and that I needed to leave. She said I wasn't welcome at the wedding, or in her life, if I couldn't accept that. I walked out of there completely defeated. I didn't know what else to do. My own daughter didn't want me at her wedding, and no matter how much I tried to understand why, it all came back to this resentment she'd been holding on to for years. I was lost, hurt, and honestly more confused than ever. After I left Laura's apartment that day, I was wrecked. I didn't know what to do or where to go from there. The whole confrontation felt like it went nowhere, and everything she said just kept playing over and over in my head. I tried to keep it together, but I felt completely blindsided by her level of anger toward me. I mean, I knew we weren't super close, but to find out she thought so little of me, that hit hard. A few days went by after that, and I still hadn't heard from her. I was trying to give her space, hoping maybe she'd come around or at least calm down enough to talk rationally. But deep down, I knew that wasn't going to happen. The wedding was coming up fast, and I didn't know if I was supposed to just sit there and pretend everything was fine. I couldn't do that. I was at home with my wife, Linda, telling her everything that went down. Linda's always been patient with Laura, way more patient than I've been, but even she was done at this point. She said it was time for me to stop letting Laura walk all over me. She was right. I'd spent so much time trying to make Laura happy, to keep some kind of peace between us, but nothing ever seemed to be enough. It was like no matter what I did, I couldn't win. That's when I made the decision that changed everything. I couldn't just keep funding a wedding that I wasn't welcome at. I mean, think about it. I was paying for this huge celebration, covering everything from the venue to the food, and I wasn't even allowed to attend. It felt ridiculous. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that Laura didn't care. She didn't care that I was hurt. She didn't care about all the money I'd spent. She didn't care about anything except herself. So I picked up the phone and called the wedding venue. I told them to cancel everything. I knew I wasn't getting my deposits back, but at that point, I didn't care about the money. It wasn't about that anymore. I just couldn't stand the idea of her going through with this wedding while I was being treated like I didn't exist. I had to take a stand, even if it hurt. The venue manager was shocked when I told him to cancel. I guess it's not every day someone pulls the plug on a wedding like that, especially so close to the date. But I didn't hesitate. I told him to go ahead and call off the caterers, the decorators, everything. I even considered canceling the wedding planner too, but I stopped myself. I didn't want to give Laura too much time to find a backup plan. I figured if I canceled just enough, she'd be left scrambling. Now, I know what some people might say, that I was being petty, that I should have just let her have the wedding and dealt with the aftermath later. But here's the thing. This wasn't just about the wedding. It was about respect. I was her father, and she had treated me like I didn't matter. I wasn't going to sit back and let her use me. I wasn't going to keep being her doormat. After I made the call, I sat down with Linda and we talked it over. She supported my decision 100%. She said something I'll never forget. If she doesn't respect you enough to invite you to her wedding, she doesn't deserve your money. And she was right. I had bent over backward for Laura for years, always trying to be the bigger person, always giving in. But enough was enough. The next day, things really started to unravel. The wedding planner called frantic, saying they couldn't get into the venue to start setting up. Apparently, the venue staff had already started clearing out everything. When Laura found out, I can only imagine her reaction. I wasn't there to see it, but I heard from a friend that there was absolute chaos. Guests were confused, vendors were showing up with no place to set up, and nobody had any idea what was going on. Laura tried calling me, of course, but I didn't pick up. I wasn't in the mood for another screaming match, and frankly, I didn't owe her any more explanations. She made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. I knew she'd be furious, but after everything she'd put me through, I didn't care. She could figure it out on her own. That evening, she actually showed up at my house. I wasn't really surprised. Laura's not the type to just let things go, but I wasn't about to have a face-to-face confrontation with her again. I needed space, so I had already taken the precaution of changing the gate code so she couldn't just waltz in whenever she wanted. I wasn't hiding from her or anything, but I didn't want to let her storm in and tear into me. I'd had enough of her words. She pounded on the gate for a while, yelling for me to come out. I just sat inside, listening, but not responding. There was nothing more to say. She'd made it clear where we stood, and this was me making it clear that I wasn't going to keep letting her take advantage of me. Eventually, she gave up and left, but I knew this wasn't over. I talked to my parents later, and they weren't exactly thrilled with how I handled it. They kept saying things like, "You can't be this harsh with your own kid, and parents shouldn't abandon their children no matter what." I get where they were coming from, but they didn't see what I'd been dealing with all these years. They didn't see the constant disrespect, the entitlement, the way she had treated Linda and me. They thought I was being too harsh, but I wasn't going to change my mind. I wasn't going to let Laura's actions slide anymore. The whole thing left me feeling conflicted, though. On one hand, I knew I had done the right thing by standing up for myself. But on the other hand, this was my daughter. No matter how much she had hurt me, there was still this nagging feeling of guilt in the back of my mind. I kept thinking, did I go too far? Should I have just let her have the wedding and dealt with everything later? But then I remembered how she had looked me in the eye and told me she didn't want me there. That was the moment I knew I couldn't keep bending over backward for her anymore. So, yeah, that's where things ended up. Laura's wedding plans were in shambles, and I was left wondering if there was ever going to be any kind of reconciliation. But at the end of the day, I had to protect myself. I had to protect my own peace, even if it meant losing my daughter in the process. And honestly, I don't regret it. After the whole mess with canceling the wedding, I expected some kind of fallout, but I didn't realize just how fast everything would unravel. The day after I canceled the venue, the wedding planner called me up in a complete panic. He started off all formal, trying to explain the situation, but it was obvious he was freaking out. The venue had already started shutting things down, and the caterers and decorators were locked out. Apparently, when they got to the venue that morning, security showed them the email I sent about the cancellation, and that's when everything went sideways. He was calling to ask if there was any way to salvage the situation, but I wasn't interested in playing nice anymore. I told him straight up, "I'm not paying for anything. The wedding's off as far as I'm concerned." He stammered a bit, trying to reason with me, but I wasn't budging. I had made my decision, and I wasn't going to be bullied into changing it just because everyone else was freaking out. The planner kept going on about how the vendors needed to be paid and how there was still time to sort things out if I just covered the remaining costs. I cut him off and told him it was no longer my problem. "You'll have to talk to Laura about that," I said, and hung up. A part of me felt bad for the guy. He was just doing his job. But this situation wasn't my mess to clean up anymore. Laura had made it clear that she didn't want me involved, so I was done being the one to fix everything. Now, what happened next? I didn't find out until much later, but apparently, when Laura showed up at the venue and found out it was canceled, she absolutely lost it. I'm talking full-blown meltdown. From what I heard, she showed up expecting to see everything set up and ready to go, but instead, the place was empty. No tables, no decorations, no caterers, nothing. Just a locked gate and a confused security guard telling her she couldn't enter. She tried to call me again, of course, but I'd already blocked her number. I wasn't going to deal with another screaming match. I guess she must have thought I was bluffing or that I'd cave at the last minute. But when she realized I was serious, things really escalated. The venue security told her she couldn't come in, and that's when she snapped. From what I've been told, she started screaming at the security guards, demanding they let her in. She even threatened to sue the venue, which, let's be real, wasn't going to get her anywhere. At one point, she tried to force her way in. And that's when the guards called the cops. If it weren't for Matt, her fiancé, showing up when he did, I'm pretty sure she would have been arrested for trespassing. He managed to calm her down just before things got really out of hand. But by then, the damage was done. Her perfect day was officially ruined. Now, while all this chaos was going down at the venue, I was at home, just waiting for the inevitable knock at my door. I knew Laura wasn't the type to let something like this go, and sure enough, she showed up later that afternoon. She was banging on the gate, yelling for me to come out, but I stayed inside. I'd already decided there was no point in having another confrontation. We'd said everything that needed to be said. I could hear her yelling, telling me how I'd ruined everything and how I was being selfish. Part of me wanted to go out there and try to talk to her, to explain why I did what I did, but another part of me knew it wouldn't make any difference. Laura had made up her mind about me a long time ago, and nothing I said was going to change that. So I stayed inside, letting her rant until she eventually gave up and left. After she was gone, I sat down with Linda, and we talked about what had happened. Linda, as usual, was supportive. She kept telling me that I'd done the right thing. that it was about time I stood up for myself, but I couldn't help feeling conflicted. On one hand, I knew I had to put my foot down. Laura's behavior had been out of control for years, and this was the final straw. But on the other hand, I couldn't shake the guilt that came with knowing I'd been the one to ruin my own daughter's wedding. As the days went by, word started to spread through the family about what had happened. I hadn't told anyone yet, but apparently Laura had gone and told her side of the story to anyone who would listen. Pretty soon, I was getting calls from relatives, asking me why I'd done it, why I couldn't just let her have her day. My parents especially were disappointed. They didn't agree with how Laura had treated me, but they still thought I should have just let the wedding happen and dealt with everything afterward. I tried explaining to them that it wasn't just about the wedding. This was years of resentment and disrespect all coming to a head. I couldn't keep being the one to fix everything, especially when she didn't want me there in the first place. But they didn't get it. To them, it was just another case of a parent and child having a falling out, something that could be patched up with time. But to me, it felt like something way bigger. This wasn't just a temporary fight. It felt like a breaking point in our relationship, and I didn't know if there was any coming back from it. The rest of the week was quiet. Laura didn't try to contact me again, and I didn't reach out either. I was trying to give myself some space to process everything, but no matter what I did, the guilt kept creeping back in. I kept thinking, was I too harsh? Should I have just sucked it up and let the wedding happen? I talked to Linda about it again, and she reminded me of all the times Laura had walked all over me, all the times I'd given in just to keep the peace. She was right. I'd spent so many years bending over backward for Laura, trying to make her happy, and where had that gotten me? Shut out of her wedding. Blocked from one of the most important moments of her life. At some point, enough is enough. That's what I kept telling myself anyway. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, I'd made a mistake. Not in standing up for myself, that part I was sure of, but in the way I went about it. Canceling the wedding like that without any warning? Maybe I could have handled it differently. Maybe if I'd tried one more time to talk to her, we could have avoided all this. But then I'd remember how she looked at me during that last confrontation, how cold and dismissive she was, and I knew there was no reasoning with her. This wasn't just a small argument. This was the result of years of pent-up anger and resentment, and it was clear she wasn't going to back down. So yeah, that's how the wedding fell apart. It wasn't pretty, and it sure as hell wasn't easy, but at the end of the day, I had to stand my ground. And while I still felt guilty, I knew that I couldn't keep letting her walk all over me. The fallout was messy, but it was necessary. Update. A week ago, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Laura's husband, Matt. It got tense to think if some mishap had happened to her. He said that she was fine, but she wanted to meet me in person. It came as a surprise to me. I asked him the reason, but he said he would tell me when we met. You said he was in the city, and if I was free, we could meet up for dinner. I said okay. I secretly wished that it was a meeting to reconcile Laura and me. I thought she wanted to meet me but was ashamed to face me. So Matt was being the middleman. I went. There was so much hope. After all, I'm a father, right? To my dismay, Matt was alone. I asked about Laura. He said he doesn't know. My heart sank, and I asked if something had happened to her and if she was fine. He told me that they were separate. He went on to reveal how Laura had been abusive in her marriage. She had real anger issues and would throw stuff at Matt and break the household stuff. Even in a minor argument, he tolerated her until he could. And when the situation got worse, he got separated from her. He said that Laura had a psychological issue and that she blamed others for any inconvenience that happened to her. She constantly used to fight with him because they had to leave the city and shift there because he got better opportunities there. Laura did not lose anything with this change. She also got a similar paying job in that city. Yeah, she was angry with him for taking her away from her hometown. That was just one thing. Laura used to be always angry at Matt and fight with them. He said that there was one more reason why he wanted to meet me in person. He wanted to say sorry. He said he witnessed Laura's cruelty towards me, Linda on my parents. But he did not intervene because Laura had manipulated him against all of us. He said that he brought misery upon himself by overlooking all the red flags. I said it was not his fault at all. It was Laura's fault. And to some extent, maybe mine, because I was not able to raise her properly. I also said sorry to him because of whatever he had been through with Laura. Matt requested me for one last favor. You said Laura had been destroyed by the separation. She's begging him to take her back, but he has fallen out of love with her because of her abuse. Yet he wishes well for her. He asked me if I could reach out to her and support her during the bad times. She literally had no friends because she lost everyone thanks to her temper. She has no real permanent friend in her life. She asked me to take her to therapy or something. I said I wish I could, but she wouldn't let me come near her. He understood my circumstances, and I understood his. We both wanted to help Laura, if at all. She would let us do so after knowing that I couldn't help but go to meet Laura. It turned out to be as expected. She dropped explosions on me and Linda, though I showed up alone. I didn't want Linda to witness Laura's wrath. I apologized to her to calm her down. I didn't think about right and wrong at that time. She was going through a rough time, and I wanted to help her out. I said she could curse me whatever she wanted, but she needed to see a therapist first. She didn't listen and dug up the past. She yelled that she hated Linda to the extent that she wanted to kill her. She said that she blocked us from her wedding because she was embarrassed to introduce Linda as her stepmom. She was ashamed of her and was ashamed of me for marrying her. She didn't listen to me and chased me out of the house. She blamed me for all of her miseries in life. I don't know if I was right or wrong, and honestly, I don't care. I want her to come out of this, but I don't know how to help her. Update. Thanks for all the moral support. I was very disturbed while making the last update. The space really helped me release my nerves. Linda suggested that I take the help of Laura's best friend from school. Her family was her neighbors, so we knew each other quite well. She was now living in South Africa. I reached out to her on social media and told her about the situation. I requested her to contact Laura, and if she opened up to her, I was betting that she would because she was the only one with whom Laura never had a fight. She assured me that she would help me and convince Laura to go to therapy, and gladly she did. Laura is going to therapy, and I'm guessing is going well because a week ago she met my parents and apologized to them for her misconduct. She confessed that her hatred grew so badly she was unable to control it, but she also said that she was never going to forgive me and still blames me for everything. I don't despise her anymore. I just wish her a good life, even if I'm not part of that. Thanks for all the support. I wish no father had to go through this when your child hates you to this level. My family chose my lying ex who cheated with my golden brother. But then karma hit them hard. So I'm a 28-year-old guy who recently got divorced. My ex-wife, who's 26, cheated on me with my 26-year-old brother. Yeah, that happened. I'll get to that in a minute, but let me start from the beginning so everything makes sense. About a year ago, my brother reached out to me. He wanted to reconnect after years of not talking. Now, you need to understand, growing up, my brother was always the golden child. He could do no wrong in my parents' eyes, and I was just there. It wasn't that they were outright cruel, but I was definitely the afterthought. They made sure he got the best, the attention, everything. That's probably why I left home when I turned 18 and didn't really look back. For years, we didn't speak much. I was doing my own thing, got a decent job, got married, and tried to build a life for myself. But then last year, my brother sent me a message saying that he and our parents missed me and wanted to make things right. I don't know what made me agree to it, but I did. I thought maybe people change, right? Maybe they really wanted to fix things. So I let my brother back into my life. At first, things seemed fine. He started coming around more often, and I introduced him to my wife. They got along well, or so I thought. But after a few months, I started noticing things that didn't sit right with me. My brother was coming over more frequently, sometimes even when I wasn't home. My wife would brush it off, saying they were just hanging out, but I couldn't shake the weird feeling I had. Then about 4 months ago, my wife dropped a big piece of news. She was pregnant. At first, I was thrilled. I mean, we were married, and I thought we were happy, so naturally I assumed the baby was mine. But something felt off. My brother's visits increased, and every time I'd see him around my wife, there was this tension I couldn't ignore. He'd make comments about the baby, touch her stomach, and say weird things that made me uncomfortable. I tried to convince myself I was overthinking it. I wanted to trust my wife, but the more I thought about it, the more things didn't add up. One night, after she went to bed, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed her phone while she was sleeping and started scrolling through her messages. And there it was, the proof I didn't want to find. She had been cheating on me with my brother for months, and the baby wasn't even mine. It was his. I felt sick. I sat there for what felt like hours, just staring at the screen, trying to wrap my head around it. Eventually, I woke her up and confronted her. She tried to deny it at first, but when I showed her the messages, she couldn't lie anymore. She admitted everything. She'd been sleeping with my brother behind my back, and they were planning to tell me about the affair after the baby was born. I couldn't believe it. I just packed a bag and left. The next day, I called my parents to tell them what had happened, thinking maybe for once they'd have my back. But nope. They sided with my brother. They said he'd made a mistake, that I should be the bigger person and that I needed to forgive him for the sake of the family. I couldn't believe it. My own family, who I'd been estranged from for years, was now telling me to forgive the same guy who wrecked my marriage. That's when I decided I was done with all of them. I told my parents I didn't want anything to do with them or my brother, and I filed for divorce. I thought that would be the end of it, but of course, things didn't end there. During the divorce proceedings, my ex tried to milk me for everything I had. She and my brother concocted this story that painted me as controlling and toxic, and of course, my family backed them up. It was like I was the villain in this twisted version of reality where they were the victims and I was the bad guy. In the end, she walked away with a decent chunk of my money, but I managed to keep the house, which was a small victory. So now here I am, divorced, cut off from my family, and trying to pick up the pieces of my life. It's been 2 months since everything blew up, and honestly, I'm still trying to figure out how to move on. I'm working more, trying to focus on myself, but it's not easy. Every now and then, something will remind me of what happened, and it all comes flooding back. But you know what? I'm done with them. My brother, my ex, my parents, they can all have each other. I don't need them. I've spent my whole life being the second choice, the one who gets overlooked, and I'm not going to live like that anymore. I don't know what the future holds, but I know one thing. I'm never letting them back into my life again. All right, so here's where things got worse, if you can believe that. After I left my ex and decided to cut ties with my family, I figured they'd let me move on in peace. I mean, it's not like I had anything left to do with them, right? My wife cheated on me with my brother. My parents took his side, and I was done with all of them. But no, it wasn't that simple. About a month after the divorce, my mom calls me out of the blue. Now keep in mind, I hadn't spoken to her since I left that day, when she basically told me to forgive my brother for wrecking my life. I wasn't really in the mood to talk, but she kept calling over and over. I finally picked up, just to see what she wanted. Right away, she goes into this whole guilt trip speech about how family is family, and no matter what, we should all stick together. She says my brother is really struggling, that he's been having a hard time finding a job, and that now with the baby and all, they're really tight on money. She says they've been relying on the settlement my ex-wife got in the divorce, but that's running out, and they need more help. Then she drops the real kicker. She asked me to help them out. Yeah, you read that right. The same family that threw me under the bus when my wife cheated on me with my brother was now asking me for money to support them. I swear, I almost laughed when she said it. I was like, are you serious right now? You're asking me to help the guy who slept with my wife? You want me to pay for their mess? But she just kept going on about how they're really struggling, how it's not fair to the baby, how I should be the bigger person. I couldn't believe it. After everything they'd put me through, they had the nerve to come to me for help. I told my mom no. Straight up, no. I wasn't going to give them a dime. I told her they could figure it out on their own, just like I had to after they all turned their backs on me. But she wasn't having it. She started crying, saying how I was being selfish, how I wasn't thinking about the baby, how my brother was really sorry and just needed a second chance. She tried to make me feel like the bad guy for not helping them out, but I wasn't falling for it. I told her that this was their problem, not mine, and I wasn't going to get involved. I hung up the phone, thinking that would be the end of it. But no. A few days later, my brother shows up at my apartment. I don't even know how he found out where I lived, but there he was, standing at my door like nothing had happened. I didn't want to let him in, but he wouldn't leave, so I figured I'd hear him out just to get him to go away. He starts off by saying he's sorry, that he messed up, that he never meant for any of this to happen. He says he and my ex didn't plan for things to get this far, and he didn't think it would hurt me this much. I just stared at him, wondering if he really believed the crap he was saying. Like, how could he not think it would hurt me? He stole my wife and my chance at having a family, and now he's standing here trying to act like it was some kind of accident. Then he hits me with this. He says he's been having trouble finding a job since the affair came out, and now that they have the baby, they're really struggling. He says he knows I'm doing well at my job, and he was hoping I could help him out until he gets back on his feet. I didn't know whether to laugh or punch him in the face. I mean, seriously, this guy sleeps with my wife, gets her pregnant, and now he wants me to give him money. I just stood there for a minute, not even knowing what to say. Finally, I told him to get lost. I told him he and my ex made their bed, and now they had to lie in it. I wasn't going to bail them out, and I definitely wasn't going to give him any money. He tried to argue, saying that I was being immature and holding on to a grudge, but I wasn't having any of it. I told him he was lucky I didn't knock him out right then and there. That's when things took a turn. My brother, who's usually all smug and arrogant, suddenly gets really pissed. He starts yelling at me, saying how I've always been jealous of him, how I've always been bitter because our parents treated him better. He says that I'm only refusing to help because I'm still mad that my ex picked him over me. At this point, I'm just staring at him, completely dumbfounded. This guy really thinks he's the victim in all this. He keeps going on about how it's not fair that I won't help out, how he's got a kid now, and how I should let go of the past. He even had the nerve to say that I should be grateful he stepped in because my ex didn't love me anymore anyway. That was it for me. I told him to get out before I called the cops. I wasn't going to stand there and let him throw that in my face like I hadn't already lost everything because of him. He finally left, but not before throwing one last jab at me, saying that I'd regret not helping him, that one day I'd need something from him and he wouldn't be there. I laughed in his face and told him I'd rather live on the street than ever ask him for anything. After that, I thought maybe they'd finally leave me alone. But of course, that was wishful thinking. About a week later, my dad calls me. Now, I hadn't spoken to my dad since the divorce either, and I figured he was calling to do the same thing my mom and brother had already tried, guilt me into helping them. And I was right. He starts off all calm, asking how I'm doing, acting like everything's normal. I wasn't in the mood for small talk, so I cut him off and asked what he wanted. He goes into this whole speech about how I'm the only one in the family who's doing well right now, and how my brother and my ex are going through a tough time. He says that as a family we need to support each other, and that I should help them out because they've got the baby to think about. I told him flat out, no. I wasn't going to help them, and I didn't care about their situation. He tried to argue, saying that I was being selfish, that I wasn't thinking about the bigger picture. He said that if I didn't help now, I'd regret it later because family is all that matters in the end. But you know what? I've been through enough to know that's not true. Sometimes family isn't the people who share your blood. It's the people who stand by you when everyone else turns their back. And my family, they turned their back on me the second they decided my brother's happiness was more important than mine. So I told my dad the same thing I told my mom and brother. I was done. I didn't want anything to do with them, and I wasn't going to be their safety net anymore. I hung up, blocked their numbers, and haven't looked back since. Alright, so here's where things went from just bad to completely ridiculous. After telling my dad I was done and blocking their numbers, I really thought that was it. I mean, how many times can they come back and ask for money, right? Turns out I was dead wrong because they weren't done yet. The next person to try and get in touch with me was my ex-wife. Yeah, the same woman who cheated on me with my brother, got pregnant with his kid, and somehow had the nerve to think I'd still care about what she had to say. It started with a random text from her. She wrote something like, "I know you don't want to talk, but I really need to explain things." I didn't even respond. What was there to explain? She screwed me over, and that was that. But apparently, me ignoring her didn't send the message. So, a couple of days later, I get a call from an unknown number. I picked it up, and guess who it was? Yup, my ex. I was about to hang up, but she started crying right away, saying how she didn't know who else to turn to. She's going on about how things with my brother are falling apart, how he's been out of work, and how they can barely afford to pay the bills. And then she hits me with the whole, "you have to help, for the sake of the baby" nonsense. Like, seriously? Why on earth would I help them after everything? I told her flat out, "No, not my problem. You made your bed, now lie in it." But she just kept going. She said that she knew she messed up, but she thought I'd understand because we were married once, and that should count for something. She even tried to play the "remember all the good times we had" card, like that would magically make me forget how she destroyed our marriage by hooking up with my own brother. Here's the thing. I wasn't even angry at her anymore. By this point, I was just tired. Tired of her. Tired of my brother. Tired of my whole family acting like I owed them something after all the crap they pulled. So, I told her straight up, "I don't owe you anything. You're with my brother now, so he's your problem, not me." That's when she started getting desperate. She started saying stuff like, "What about the baby? Don't you care about him? He could have been yours." That one stung a little. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I always wanted kids, and for a minute there, I thought I was going to be a dad. But then I remembered the baby isn't mine, and honestly, that's not on me anymore. I told her, "Look, the baby isn't mine, and it's not my job to take care of him or you. You've got a whole family who took your side, remember? Go ask them for help." And I hung up. After that, I figured they'd finally get the hint and leave me alone. Spoiler alert, they didn't. A few days later, I'm at work, just trying to get through the day when my boss comes over to my desk. He looks kind of awkward, which is weird because we usually get along really well. He's like, "Hey man, there's someone here to see you." I'm thinking, who the hell would come to my job? So I walk out to the lobby, and guess who's standing there? My freaking mom. At this point, I'm just about done with all of this. I mean, who shows up at someone's workplace unannounced? She starts right in on me the second I step into the lobby. She's like, "Why are you ignoring us? We're family, and family doesn't abandon each other." I told her I wasn't abandoning anyone. I was just done with their nonsense. But she wasn't having it. She starts crying, like full-on sobbing in front of everyone in the lobby, about how I'm punishing the whole family for one mistake. She says my brother is in a really bad place right now, and that they're all struggling because of me. I looked her dead in the eye and told her, "You're not struggling because of me. You're struggling because you chose to side with my brother after he destroyed my marriage. That's on you, not me." She kept going, though, saying how they didn't know things would turn out like this and how they just want to make things right. But I didn't buy it for a second. I told her I wasn't going to stand there and argue with her in the middle of my workplace, and that if she wanted to talk, she could call me, if I decided to unblock her number. That shut her up pretty quick. She gave me this whole speech about how I was better than this, and how she raised me to be more forgiving. I almost laughed. Raised me? The same parents who spent my whole childhood putting my brother on a pedestal and treating me like I didn't exist? Yeah, okay. I told her that if she didn't leave, I'd have security escort her out. That's when she really lost it. She started yelling, calling me selfish, saying how I was letting my pride get in the way of helping my family. I just stood there, completely done with the whole thing. Finally, she stormed out, still shouting about how I was going to regret this. I went back to my desk, and my boss just gave me this look like, "What the hell was that about?" I didn't even bother explaining. What could I say? Sorry, my mom showed up to guilt trip me into giving money to the brother who cheated with my wife? Yeah, that would go over well. I just told him it was family drama and left it at that. I spent the rest of the day in a haze just trying to focus on work, but all I could think about was how my family had gone from screwing me over to straight up harassing me. I mean, they were showing up at my job now. What's next, them camping out in front of my apartment? That night, I finally decided enough was enough. I sent my mom, dad, brother, and even my ex-wife one last message. I told them all the same thing. Don't contact me again. I'm done with this family, and I don't want anything to do with you. Stop harassing me or I'll get a restraining order. Harsh? Maybe. But I was over it. I'd already lost my marriage, my future plans, and any chance at a normal relationship with my family. I wasn't about to let them keep coming back to tear me down even more. And you know what? For the first time in months, I actually felt a little bit of peace after sending those messages. It was like I finally took control of my own life, even if it meant cutting out the people who were supposed to care about me the most. And honestly, I don't regret it. Not one bit. Let's see if they actually leave me alone this time, though. Something tells me this isn't over. So, after sending that final message telling my family to leave me alone, I thought maybe, just maybe, I'd finally get some peace. I mean, how many times do you have to tell people to back off before they get the hint, right? Well, turns out my family doesn't understand boundaries, because it wasn't even a week later that my dad showed up at my apartment. Yeah, no text, no call, just standing at my door like nothing's wrong. I open the door and there he is, acting all casual like he's just swinging by for a chat. He gives me that fake smile he always does when he's trying to get something out of me, and I immediately know this isn't going to be a friendly visit. He starts off with, "Son, we need to talk." I'm already annoyed because seriously, what now? Haven't they all done enough? I stepped outside, closed the door behind me, and told him to make it quick. I wasn't in the mood to deal with more guilt tripping or begging for money. He goes right into it, no warm-up this time, just straight to the point. He says, "Your brother and your mother are struggling. Things aren't looking good, and they really need help. You're doing well for yourself now, aren't you? You could easily lend a hand." I couldn't believe it. After everything, this was still their priority, making sure my brother was okay while I got tossed aside like I didn't matter. I cut him off right there and told him, "I'm not giving them any money. I'm not helping them out, and I'm done with this conversation." But he wasn't done. He kept pushing, saying how family helps family, how they were all going through a rough patch and needed me to step up. Step up? The audacity of that just hit me like a brick. I've been stepping up my whole life while they've treated me like nothing. I told him flat out, "You've never stepped up for me, not once. When my wife was cheating on me with my brother, where were you? When I needed you, you were on their side, not mine. So don't come here asking me to step up, now." He just stood there for a second like he wasn't expecting me to actually push back. Then he tried to play the guilt card, of course. He said, "I know we've made mistakes, but we're still your family. We'll always be your family." It's like they think that just saying the word family automatically erases all the crap they've put me through. I was done playing nice. I told him, "Family? You're not my family anymore. Not after everything you've done. You threw me away for him and now you expect me to save you? No, that's not how this works." He started getting defensive, saying how I was being dramatic and how I needed to stop holding a grudge. He said my brother had made a mistake, but that I was overreacting by cutting everyone off. That word, overreacting, it just set me off. I told him, "You think I'm overreacting? My wife slept with my brother. The child she's raising should have been my kid. You all stood by and watched it happen, then asked me to forgive him like nothing ever happened. And now you have the nerve to come here and ask me to help you? That's not overreacting. That's setting boundaries." He was clearly pissed now, but trying to keep it together. He said, "We didn't know things would turn out like this. We just wanted to keep the peace in the family." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Keep the peace? How is letting my brother wreck my marriage keeping the peace? It was so typical of them, though. They've always tried to sweep things under the rug, act like nothing's wrong, and expect me to just go along with it. I told him, "Keeping the peace is just code for ignoring the real problem. You've been ignoring me my whole life, pretending everything's fine as long as my brother's happy. Well, I'm not ignoring it anymore. I'm done." And with that, I turned and started walking back to my door. But of course, he wasn't done. He grabbed my arm, which, let me tell you, was a bad move on his part. I yanked my arm away and told him, "Don't touch me." He looked at me like he didn't even recognize the person standing in front of him. I think he really believed I'd just cave like I used to when I was a kid. But I'm not that kid anymore, and I wasn't about to let them manipulate me into giving them what they wanted. Before he left, he tried one last guilt trip. He said, "You'll regret this. One day, you'll see that family is all that matters." I looked him dead in the eye and said, "No, respect is what matters, and I haven't gotten any from you or anyone else in this family. So, no, I won't regret this." He stood there for a second like he was about to say something, but then he just shook his head and walked away. When I got back inside, I just sat there trying to process everything. It was like no matter what I did, they couldn't accept that I wasn't going to be a part of their mess anymore. They couldn't handle the fact that I wasn't playing by their rules, and it drove them crazy. I guess part of me was hoping that, after all this time, maybe they'd finally realize how badly they messed up. Maybe they'd apologize or at least acknowledge the pain they caused. But that was just wishful thinking. They don't see what they did wrong. They never will. In their minds, I'm the bad guy for walking away. I'm the one breaking up the family. But you know what? I'm okay with that. If standing up for myself means I'm the bad guy in their story, then fine. I'll be the bad guy. I'm not going to let them guilt me into being their doormat again. After my dad left, I blocked him too. I didn't want to deal with any more surprise visits or phone calls. I knew they'd keep trying, but at least for now, I could get some peace. Or at least that's what I thought. A few days later, my phone rang again. This time, it was an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail, figuring it was just another attempt to get to me. But when I checked the message later, I realized it wasn't from my family at all. It was from a lawyer. My ex-wife was trying to sue me for more alimony. That was the final straw. I'm not the same person I was when all this started. I've learned that sometimes you have to fight back. So now I'm gearing up for the legal battle. I've been through hell, but if they want to keep pushing, I'll push right back. This time, they're not going to win. I'm done being the one who gets stepped on. So after getting that voicemail from the lawyer saying my ex-wife was trying to get more alimony out of me, I knew it was time to fight back. I wasn't going to let her or my family drag me through the mud anymore. Enough was enough. First things first, I got in touch with my lawyer. I told him everything that's been going on, from my ex trying to get more money to my family harassing me nonstop. He was just as fed up as I was and said we needed to put an end to this once and for all. So, we started working on a case. Turns out she didn't have much of a leg to stand on. She was already getting a decent settlement from the divorce, and there was no real reason for her to ask for more. But you know how some people are. They'll keep pushing until they get what they want, or until someone stops them. I decided I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore, and I wasn't going to let my family keep manipulating me either. My lawyer and I built up a solid defense, and we even found some loopholes that could potentially get me out of paying alimony altogether. That's when things started getting interesting. A few days before the court date, my brother, yes, him again, decided to reach out. This time, he sent me this long-winded email trying to play the big brother role. It was all about how he regretted how things turned out and how he missed having me in his life. I could practically hear his fake sincerity through the words. He even tried to say that the affair wasn't really what it seemed, that it was a mistake and they didn't mean to hurt me. Yeah, sure, a mistake that lasted months and resulted in a kid. Right. I didn't respond to the email because, honestly, what was the point? I knew he was only reaching out because he and my ex were scared they might lose the alimony, and they were probably hoping to guilt trip me into backing down. But there was no way I was going to let that happen. I was done with them. They had their chance to fix things, and they blew it, repeatedly. So the court date finally rolls around, and I'm ready. My lawyers got everything set, and we're walking in there prepared for whatever they throw at us. My ex and her lawyers show up, and surprise, surprise, she's got my brother with her for support. I wasn't shocked, but it was still annoying seeing them together, acting like they weren't the ones who blew up my life. They didn't even have the decency to look ashamed or embarrassed about it. They just sat there whispering to each other and pretending like they were the victims in all this. When it was finally our turn to present the case, my lawyer laid it all out. He brought up how my ex was already getting more than enough from the divorce settlement, how she wasn't entitled to more money just because things weren't going well for her. He even pointed out that she'd been dishonest during the divorce proceedings, hiding the fact that she and my brother had been seeing each other for months before the divorce was finalized. Basically, we made it clear that she didn't deserve a penny more from me. Her lawyer tried to argue that she needed more money to support the baby, again, not my kid. But it didn't really hold up. My lawyer shut that down quick. He said it wasn't my responsibility to take care of their kid, and the judge seemed to agree. The best part? My lawyer had also gathered evidence of my family's harassment over the past few months. The texts, the surprise visits, my mom showing up at my job, all of it. He presented it to the judge as proof that they were trying to manipulate and pressure me into giving them money. The judge wasn't impressed with their behavior, and you could see the look on my ex's face when she realized things weren't going her way. By the end of it, the judge ruled in my favor. Not only did my ex not get any more alimony, but they actually reduced the amount I was paying her. The judge saw right through her act and decided that she didn't deserve as much as she'd originally gotten. It was the best outcome I could have hoped for. After the ruling, my ex and brother stormed out of the courtroom without saying a word to me. I could see the anger and frustration on their faces, and honestly, it felt good. For the first time in this whole mess, I felt like I'd actually won. I wasn't the one getting walked all over anymore. But it didn't end there. A few days after the court ruling, my dad tried to call me again. He left a voicemail, something about how I'd ruined the family and how I was tearing everyone apart. I didn't even listen to the whole thing. I just deleted it and blocked his number again. I wasn't going to let them pull me back into their drama. I was done, for real this time. And honestly, I feel free now. For the first time in years, I'm not carrying the weight of my family's expectations or my ex's lies or my brother's betrayal. I'm just me. I've cut them all out and I'm focusing on myself. It's not always easy, and yeah, sometimes it still hurts to think about everything that happened. But I'm not letting it control my life anymore. Since the court case, I've been focusing on my work, my friends, and just living my life. I'm not going to lie and say everything's perfect now, because it's not. I still have moments where I get angry, where I think about what could have been if things had gone differently. But those moments are getting fewer and farther between. The truth is, I'm better off without them. My family, my ex, they were toxic and it took me a long time to see it, but now I do. I'm never going back to that life. I've got a fresh start now, and I'm not going to waste it. So yeah, that's the end of it. My family tried to screw me over, my ex tried to take more than she deserved, but in the end, I came out on top. I'm not sure what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I'm excited to find out. And if they ever try to come back into my life again, well, let's just say I'm not afraid to fight back anymore. Update 1. Alright, so here's where things took another turn I wasn't expecting. After the whole mess with the divorce and cutting my family off, I thought I was finally done with all their nonsense. But you know what they say, right? When it rains, it pours. I should have known they wouldn't just leave me alone. A few weeks ago, I get a message from someone I hadn't spoken to in years, my aunt. Now let me explain a little bit about her. She's my dad's sister, and growing up, we were never really close. She kind of stayed out of family drama, so I didn't think much of her. But apparently, she's been keeping up with everything going on because she heard about my divorce and reached out. At first, I thought maybe she was just checking in, seeing how I was doing, but nope. She had her own agenda, just like everyone else in my family. She started by saying she's worried about my parents and how the whole situation has torn the family apart. Then she jumps right into asking me if I would reconsider talking to them again. She said they were struggling without me, and that it wasn't too late to fix things. I was honestly stunned. Like, are you serious? After everything that happened, I'm the one who's supposed to fix things? I told her straight up that I wasn't interested in fixing anything. I made it clear that they were the ones who threw me under the bus, not the other way around. And I wasn't going to pretend like everything was fine just because they were struggling now. She tried to guilt trip me, saying things like, Your dad isn't getting any younger, and family is all we've got at the end of the day. I've heard it all before, and it didn't work then, and it definitely wasn't working now. I told her the same thing I told my parents. I don't owe them anything. I'm not going to be the one to sweep everything under the rug just because they've decided now's the time they want me back in their lives. She didn't take that too well. She started getting defensive, saying how my parents were just trying to do what's best for everyone, and that I needed to let go of my anger. I wasn't even angry at that point, just exhausted from having the same conversation over and over. I told her that if she really cared about the family, maybe she should have stepped in when all this was happening instead of showing up now when it's convenient for her. The conversation ended pretty quickly after that. She said she was disappointed in me, which honestly was kind of laughable. Disappointed? In me? The one person in this family who's actually tried to stand up for themselves? Yeah, okay, so that's where I'm at now. They're still trying to pull me back in, still trying to make me feel like the bad guy for not wanting to deal with their drama. But I'm not falling for it. I've come too far to go back now. I've got my own life to live, and I'm not going to spend it cleaning up their messes.